All right, so let's dive in. Imagine this. You've got this killer idea, right? Could totally shake things up. But in this day and age, how do you even begin to protect it?
That's the million-dollar question these days, isn't it? Everyone's looking for that edge.
Exactly. And that's where this stack of resources you've given me comes in, all about becoming an intellectual property consultant. We're talking about being the guardian of those brilliant ideas.
It's a fascinating field, really. I mean, we're living in an idea economy, right? Companies, big or small, are realizing that their intellectual property, that's their gold mine.
So true. Okay, so let's break it down. We hear intellectual property tossed around constantly. But for someone running a small business, let's say, what does it actually mean for them?
Simply put, it's about protecting what makes them stand out, their unique edge. Could be a logo, a design, a secret recipe, even the software they use.
Like their secret sauce.
Exactly. And an IP consultant, they're the ones who help identify those crucial assets and figure out how to best protect them.
Now, this career guide we have here, it really digs into the different types of IP. Seems like it's not just about patents anymore.
Oh, absolutely not. We're talking patents, trademarks, copyrights, even trade secrets. Each one has its own purpose. Think of it like this. A patent protects an invention, like a new gadget.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then you've got trademarks. They protect your brand, those logos and slogans everyone recognizes. And copyrights. Those are for creative works like music or books.
So it's like having a whole arsenal of tools to protect different parts of the business, a legal toolbox for ideas.
Precisely. And that's where an IP consultant's expertise really shines. They know which tool is right for the job and how to use it effectively.
Now, something else that caught my eye in this guide is how IP consultants do more than just advise on the legal stuff. There's this whole other side of valuing IP portfolios and even brokering deals, which sounds incredibly intense. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Wow, that does sound intense. It's like, how do you even begin to put a price tag on, say, a patent for some groundbreaking AI? It's a real art, actually. You're not just looking at the idea itself, but its potential in the market.
Right.
So IP consultants, they use all sorts of methods. They'll look at comparable patents, licensing deals, even try to predict how much revenue that IP could generate down the line.
It's like looking into a crystal ball, but for ideas.
Kind of, yeah. It can get pretty complex. We're talking financial modeling, market analysis, the whole shebang.
So you need to be fluent in legalese AMD, the language of business.
Right.
That's quite the skill set. This RoleCatcher guide you shared, it actually breaks down where these IP gurus typically work. Seems like there's a lot of variety.
Definitely. The traditional route, yeah, you'd start out in a law firm that specialized in IP law. But now, IP consultants, they're popping up everywhere.
Really?
Oh, yeah. You've got dedicated IP consulting firms. They're booming. And tons of big companies, especially in tech and pharmaceuticals, they've got whole in-house IP departments.
It's like everyone's realizing the power of a good idea.
Exactly.
Now, for our listeners out there who are maybe feeling that entrepreneurial spirit, the guide also mentions, hey, you could always start your own IP consulting firm.
Absolutely.
Work directly with startups, inventors, maybe even musicians. That's got a nice ring to it.
It does, doesn't it? It really speaks to how much this expertise is needed. Though the guide does point out that with that independence comes the whole juggling act of running a business, marketing, finances, all that fun stuff.
Right, the less glamorous side of being your own boss.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what about work-life balance? The guide mentions a typical office setting, but also the potential for travel, which some people might love. But then it also hints at tight deadlines, which I guess in a fast-paced field like IP law makes sense.
Yeah, it's definitely something to consider. Even with technology making things smoother, IP consultants often find themselves up against the clock, whether it's filing a patent before someone else does or hammering out a time-sensitive agreement.
It's high stakes. And speaking of technology, the guide really emphasizes its growing role in the IP world. Seems like it's not enough to just know the legal ins and outs anymore. You've got to be tech-savvy to stay ahead of the game.
100%. We're talking AI-powered search tools that can sift through mountains of patent data, software that helps manage those complex IP portfolios, even blockchain being explored to make IP protection even more secure.
It's really amazing how much technology is shaking things up, even in the legal world. But okay, for someone listening who's thinking, this sounds like my kind of gig, what does it really take to thrive in this field? The guide lays out some pretty compelling pros and cons.
Yeah, and it's always good to weigh those carefully right. I mean, on the plus side, no denying it, the demand for IP consultants is huge. Often translates to pretty great salaries and benefits. Plus, you're working with cutting-edge stuff, groundbreaking ideas, You really feel like you're part of shaping the future.
Okay, yeah, that's going to feel pretty good. Helping those light bulb moments become a reality. But the guide also mentions the demanding workload, having to constantly stay updated as things change, and even the potential for, like, conflict, right?
Definitely all things to keep in mind. The work can be demanding, no doubt. Got to be detail-oriented, able to juggle multiple projects, all that good stuff. And because intellectual property is so valuable, disagreements happen. Infringement cases, licensing negotiations, even ethical questions about who owns what.
Right, right. Because where there's money, there's always.
Exactly.
So for those who are ready to dive into this world, what's the path look like? The guide seems to lay out a pretty clear roadmap, starting with education.
So a strong legal background is key. For certain things like, say, drafting patents, a law degree, that's usually a must-have.
Makes sense.
But, the guide also highlights how valuable a diverse background can be. Economics, business, even computer science, those can be huge assets in this field.
It's like a melting pot of skills.
Ex-
And of course, the guide really stresses hands-on experience, internships, entry-level positions at law firms, companies with IP departments, even pro bono work. Right?
Oh, yeah, all those real-world experiences are gold. And it's not just about knowing the legal stuff inside and out. The guide actually says that core skills, like thinking critically, communication, negotiation, those are super important for advising clients and navigating tricky situations. Actually, they say it makes up something like 70% of an IP consultant's effectiveness.
Wow, 70%, that's huge.
Right.
So it's not just what you know, it's how you use it.
Exactly.
And to top it off, there are certifications, like becoming a certified intellectual property consultant, a CIPC, or a registered patent agent. I imagine that gives you a leg up.
Oh, for sure. Shows you're serious, dedicated. And speaking of standing out, this is where that RoleCatcher platform comes in. It's not just a job board, It uses tech to help you showcase what you bring to the table and connect with the right opportunities.
Right, you mentioned that earlier, how it uses AI to, tailor your resume and practice interviews. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and their reverse matching system is really interesting.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So instead of just applying and hoping for the best, employers can actually search for candidates based on what they're looking for. And they reach out to you. It's like having your own personal recruiter.
Okay, so it flips the script. The power dynamic shifts a bit.
Exactly.
So we've really gone on a journey here. From the basics of IP to what it takes to be an IP consultant. It's this fascinating blend of law, business, and tech, where expertise is highly sought after. As we wrap up, we'll leave you with this. In a world increasingly driven by data and innovation, what's the true value of an idea? Is it about legal protection, market potential, or something more? Something to ponder as you navigate this exciting landscape. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.